amidst the suffocating grip of towering pines. The air lay still around the modest park ranger station. A flicker of orange glow cut through the monochrome of the twilight, signaling an unregistered campfire deep within the forest. Ranger Eric, fueled by duty and a tinge of unease, prepared to set out into the gathering gloom. With his trusty radio clipped to his belt and flashlight in hand, he ventured forth, each step echoing in harmony with the unseen pulse of the wilderness. The trail was well trodden, yet felt starkly unfamiliar under the waning light. Each shadow concealing ancient secrets only whispered in forgotten tongues. The forest enclosed Eric like a cathedral of shadows, its silence profound and echoing with the dull crunch of his boots. As he approached the approximation of the campfire, the radio crackled with static, then died in a blanket of silence. With each step, unease gathered around him like the encroaching darkness, the silent breaths of the woods closing in with an almost tangible weight. What was once comforting routine transformed into a surreal journey between reality and illusion, where every snapped twig sent a ripple of apprehension through his nerves. Eric found the source of the smoke, a smoldering circle of ash, the remnants of a campfire that seemed to mock his solitude. Yet there was no sign of any camper or inhabitant, just a chilling emptiness that was punctuated only by the soft rustle of the leaves above. He circled the ash, examining it with the precision born of years of experience. But the more he looked, the more the ground seemed to shift underfoot, an unsettling sensation seeping into his consciousness. The fine line between reality and his burgeoning fear trembled delicately, collapsing under the weight of the silence. Hours passed with Eric locked in a silent battle against the encroaching darkness, and the voice within urging him to retreat. Yet curiosity mingled with his fear, driving him to search for any clues. The forest, now a maze of shadows and whispers, seemed to watch him with an immobile stare, its secrets coiled tightly within the branches. As fatigue crept into his bones, he noticed footprints around the ashes, too faint but distinct enough to suggest a hurried departure. Relief was short-lived. Each print seemed to speak of another story, unraveling beneath them. As Eric followed the trail of footprints, they led him deeper into the heart of the forest, into realms where daylight dared not venture. The deeper he walked, the more the forest tightened around him, an oppressive shroud fed by the chilling wind, whispering secrets unknown. Shapes moved in the periphery of his vision, a game of shadows or something more substantial. Paranoia tainted his perceptions, compelling him to challenge the limits of his bravery. Each crunch underfoot seemed amplified, echoing the depths of the surrounding abyss. With each step Eric took, the forest seemed to reshape itself, paths twisting, trees shifting, a serpentine coil of mystery. A throbbing unease swelled in his chest as he noticed peculiar figures carved into the ancient barks, each more elaborate than the last. These markings, he realized, were not the art of nature, but purposeful etchings speaking of ancient rituals forgotten by time. Each design whispered of stories untold, of shadows that stretched longer than the eye could see. Eric's mind spiraled as he unearthed deeper into this clandestine world of symbols and shadows, losing his sense of direction to an overpowering force that seemed to guide his steps. The forest, now an entity of its own, pulsated with life, vibrating with an energy that teetered between inviting and threatening. Distracted by the pressing aura, he almost missed the subtle chirp of his radio reanimating, cracking through the static with disjointed whispers, voices not his own, but eerily familiar, as if echoing from a forgotten realm. The radio's unnatural messages triggered a crescendo of dread within Eric, and yet an attraction to the voices compelled him onward. He reached an unfamiliar clearing where the moonlight unveiled a surreal tableau, an array of stone formations arranged in a sacred geometry that resonated with the markings on the trees. It was a shrine to an ancient power, watched over by the ageless forest. The air was thick with anticipation, the whispering voices growing more coherent, weaving a chilling melody that seemed to hail from within the earth itself. Eric's heart raced as he approached the stone arrangement, a sensation of being drawn into an ancient covenant swirling in his gut. Each stone whispered promises of power and secrets, yet the air crackled with a mounting tension, the forest closing ranks around him like a disciplined army. The voices from the radio coalesced into coherent words, their meanings obfuscated by an archaic language. Eric felt the pull of the stones and the invisible threads of fate tightening around him, blurring the lines between sacrifice and salvation, hunter and prey. The enchantment of the stones held Eric captive until the disturbing crescendo of radio whispers morphed into raw, primal screams. His survival instincts flared, routing reason as he backed away. The once commendable trees now enclosing like rooks on a forgotten chessboard. Panic clawed at him, his only sound strategy to escape the creeping abyss and the ancient grasp around his soul. His pace quickened through the twisting paths, each turn a gamble, each step a question, banging aimlessly against the rattling silence. As Eric ran, the dissonant symphony of the forest continued to chase him, illusions swirling like the dense mist curling around the trees. Memories and fragments of reality bled together, a patchwork storybook torn at the seams by fear. He stumbled upon a clearing, barely registering the rusting chains and abandoned campsite, a relic of his purpose. But now, stripped bare by elemental fear, the only relics that mattered were his own racing heart and the careless whispers of a world he barely understood. Eric faltered on the edge of despair, his senses blurring as the forest's chorus rose to a cacophonous roar. Seeking refuge, he leaned against a sprawling tree old beyond reckoning, its bark whispering in dead languages. All at once, Eric found himself caught in a vision, the world spinning away to reveal shadowy figures dancing between the trees, keepers of the forest. Locked in an eternal dance of light and shadow, he glimpsed through the veils, understanding at once the power and the peril that guarded these woods. As the vision unspooled into nothingness, the whistle of the wind unveiled its previous guise as haunting figures receded into their woodland sentry posts. Eric felt the forest's grasp loosen, realizing its ancient intelligence was granting him passage by unlocking yet another layer of its secrets. Understanding dawned. He was never alone in these woods, but neither was he its prisoner entirely. With renewed clarity, Eric threaded his way through the forest tapestry, guided not by sight, but by the pulse of the land itself calling him back. By the time Eric stumbled out of the forest, dawn's pale fingers had begun tracing the sky. He emerged not as a lost ranger, but a guardian returned, bearing the unknowable truths of a sentient land. As he looked back, the forest stood tranquil, silent sentinel to its own complex web of mysteries, patient and eternal. Yet lying there, between the grass and the shadows of awakening sun, was his hat, a sinister testament to the trials endured and the hands of fate that played their silent tunes. Eric headed back towards the station with a new eeriness settled over his shoulders. The forest's incalculable depths now a lingering whisper in his mind. Fellow rangers gathered, faces fraught with relief and awe, their words falling into the profound silence born from disbelief and the open-ended stories in Eric's eyes. Though many truths would remain unspoken, the air was beset with a sense of victory mingled with continued mystery. The hat would be a vestige of the hours lost, but also of the stories yet to unravel within those silent woods.